This is
James.
Okay, James gonna be working on the pool here. So what'd you find?
All right, so we can start off over here.
Okay.
That gate is self-latch, it's self-closing, but it needs to be self-latching.
Okay.
There's supposed by code, there's supposed to be a latch on the inside of the gate. It has to be up on top.
Is the gate supposed to swing open?
Away
out?
from the pool.
Away from the pool. Okay.
Yes, so it's swinging correctly, and it is self-closing. It just needs to be self-latching as well.
So it just needs a latch on
locks when it closes.
Yeah. It's so a kid can't reach and open it. Basically.
Oh, because they would have to unlatch and then unlock.
They would have to reach, and if you're high enough to reach, you're probably
Tall enough to.
to
you're not a small
old enough
kid.
to swim, kind of thing.
Okay.
Over here in the equipment, there's a small leak on the filter. Right here, it's actually just leaking down. Not a big deal. You just got to take this off, and this gets done through service anyways. But just take it off, clean the seal, or replace the tank O-ring and put it back on. And
Okay.
no big deal at all. This filter's brand new. I'm sorry, this pump is.
Yeah.
And it's working just fine, and it is bonded as well. You can see the bonding wire in here,
Okay.
so that's a good thing as well. So that's it.
So equipment looks good.
Equipment's fine, yeah,
Okay.
equipment's fine. Now over here, this is pool deck material. There's some cracking going on. It's very common for this, some delamination as well. You can see here.
And that's the cool decking coming up.
It's cool decking coming off, and just with maintenance, it would actually repair that. You would just basically retouch all the delaminated areas, all the cracks, and paint the whole thing, and
Right.
and that gets done, every once in a while, anyways, every couple of years.
Okay.
It's not like a failed product or anything; it just needs upkeep. The pool light is over here. It is GFCI protected.
Okay.
And the switch is here, and the GFCI protection is right here. This is a little bit loose, so this does have to be kind of tightened up a little bit. Maybe replace the seal back here.
Okay.
The weather stripping, but that's just fine, and that is the way it's supposed to be. This deck, junction box is a little bit low, but it's fine. It's supposed to be 4 inches above, so it's okay.
It's close enough.
Yeah. Now the one big thing here is that there is no main drain.
Okay.
At all. There isn't one at all. There was one originally. There's probably a leak in the line, and they just plastered over it because this isn't original plaster.
This is about 17 years old
For sure.
when he redid it.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a main drain. Very rarely is there not a main drain. I mean, all of this year I've never not seen a main drain. All of last year never not seen one. I think the year before that there was one pool I worked with that didn't have.
So it's
one.
pretty uncommon that it's not there.
Yeah, and it's by code there was supposed to be one. Now, unfortunately, the only way to do that is you're basically gonna expose, the rebar and saw cut all the way up the wall, whichever wall you choose, and then run a new suction line all the way to the equipment.
So technically, let's break this into two. So right now, if you're buying this house and you're going to be using this, does the pool function, and are you going to be fine for a number of years?
It's not a safety issue.
Okay.
The safety issue would lie in the fact that it's almost it's kind of irrelevant because almost all pools have a working main drain, but it never functions.
Okay.
And that's because there's some leg work involved in making it work.
Right.
And it's there's a couple reasons why it's there, but one of the most important reasons is to circulate heavy water. You want all this water to end up in the filter. But again, I mean, out of all the pools I build, all of them have one that's ready to go, but none of them are actually being used.
Okay.
Because they want most of the suction on the surface, so all the leaves end up in the debris. So
Right.
they don't want to allocate some of that suction to the main drain. So it's not really a safety issue for the most part.
Now, if they were, one of the concerns that they had when they were here was that the surface has got some modeling to it over
Yeah, so
time.
it's delaminated. I'm sorry, it's discolored. There's modeling going on. It's a combination of chemistry neglect, age of the plaster, and then just basically. Sometimes what happens is that the calcium's really off. They drain it, they fill it. The calcium's so off, it starts leaching from the ground up because there's some kind of equilibrium that's going to
Okay.
follow by. and then that's where some of it comes from. That's irreversible. You can't reverse that. The staining and modeling going on. This happens, you know, if you replaster this is going to start happening like 4 or 5 years after.
Okay.
So it's a very common thing. The structural integrity of this is not necessarily compromised. Plaster is a waterproofing and then cosmetic second.
Okay.
So the waterproofing aspect of plaster is still there. You know, it's still doing its part, it's still doing its thing. The cosmetic aspect of it is, you know, by standards on the lower side, to where you know, it's resurfacing should be considered kind of thing, but it's holding water.
It's holding water.
And this, you know, pools that I plastered 6 years ago start to look like this.
Okay.
You know, so it's just plaster. So in the future, re-pebble and don't plaster, or install a pebble finish, not a plaster finish. You won't have this problem.
Now, let's say, because I think, you know, I talked with them a little bit about this. Let's say that they wanted to maybe take the deeper end and sort of reconfigure this and put sort of a spa and maybe a tanning shelf to sort of fill in part of this. I'm assuming at that point, it's probably when you would sort of also maybe include a drain on the bottom again.
Yeah, include a drain. It just depends on how you go, but absolutely. Just by resurfacing the pool, you're gonna expose the gunite, you know, and then you could, you know, any patchwork you do, as long as you resurface the whole pool, will be no problem at all.
Okay.
So you can add a spot anywhere here. No problem. You can add a spot in the pool, on the exterior of the pool, whatever you want. Add tanning shells. It's really not a problem. You get to reuse the whole structure.
Okay. The pool itself, if they just are, you know, like if that's a plan, but it costs a bit of money to get into this house, and they want to take a few years before they ever get to that, is this pool in good shape? Is that going to be fine? Or
yeah, as long as it's, you know, as long as the plumbing's not leaking,
right?
You know, it's okay. I mean, the code's there for a reason, you know. So there is a code issue that's not being met, but it's not a safety issue. So you know, if they're okay with not complying with that law, which, you know, it's a lot of pools have it but don't use it,
right,
kind of thing, then it's fine. It's not going to be a problem. This pool is most likely identical, besides the main drain, to that pool, the pool down the street, or every pool in Palm Springs that's original to some extent, even 20, 30 years ago, has some sort of problem that isn't you know, that isn't upkept with the code. So
right, because codes are new, and so
codes are new, are always evolving. You know, you're grandfathered in. This was always a code even when they built this. But there's always something going on. So
you were saying the filter works from the top level anyhow, but would there be should they consider, if they do end up with the final purchase on this place, doing one of those tubes with the roaming filter that goes around the bottom?
And they would just plug into the skimmer, and that's just fine. Now, one thing to consider is that this pool, so when you do, you know, if you do, you know, they're going to inherit some problems. You know, one thing is the main drain. That's an issue that needs to be at some point, you know, corrected, whether you're remodeling essentially. Another thing is that there's only one return line. One return line is a common thing that was done, and now it's recommended to have more than one, especially for this size of a pool. Okay. More than one. But one thing, you know, it's not really a problem that's a big issue here, because you can actually see the return line's coming from there. And the water gets shot all through here, and you can see the ripples. You can actually see the ripples in the bottom of the pool, that it is circulating the water.
Okay,
so there's enough pressure in the lines to circulate the water. Now again, going back to that heavy water, if you get a floor cleaner or some kind of automated cleaner, navigator, creeper crawler is, you know, a common term used for them. That would help a lot with the heavy water. This pool at one point in time had it wasn't kept up properly, and there was black algae. And I know that because all of these pittings, that's all originally black algae. It's, you know, just it's a form of algae that grows a protective coat over itself, and chlorine can't really attack it. But you see a bunch of little dots everywhere.
Those are the dark dots. That's what you're talking.
That was black algae, and black algae, if it's there long enough, it starts embedding itself in the plaster, and then starts slowly deteriorating the plaster. And that's why the pitting's still here, but the black algae is not. But that's because there's a circulation problem or water chemistry issue kind of thing. But if you put in that floor cleaner, then that would actually take care of circulating the hard water on the bottom, because it's going to suck water wherever it's roaming.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is a good game plan for this.
Okay.
But yeah.
So obviously not a new pool, but serviceable.
And if nothing is done other than like the leak, and then another issue we'll get to, if nothing's done, it's gonna look exactly like this with good service.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not gonna be it's not gonna be an issue.
Okay. Well, let's walk over to the other thing. Yep. Ready? Go ahead.
This is the delamination I'm talking about.
Oops, let me get out of the way here. Okay.
And it's just more so here because every time they clean the basket, water falls on top, and you know, everything's it's just too porous and starts to laminate. It's a common issue.
Okay. And that's the area where the filter takes the water through, and there's a basket there.
It sucks in. It's called the skimmer, and all this debris. See all this little. You might not see it, but there's like a dead bee in there. It's gonna eventually end up in this basket. And then it's going to go into the filter, and either if it's large debris, then it's going to get stuck in the basket, and the basket gets cleaned. If it's smaller, then it ends up in the filter cartridges, and those get hosed off every 3-4 months.
Okay, and is this other one a refiller?
It's an automatic fill, an autofill. So there you go.
And so that thing there is a bob,
yeah,
like in a toilet.
Like a toilet. Now, one thing about this is that I think it's actually a little off. But the water level is 3 inches too high.
So you would adjust that bob lower.
We would adjust the lower, and probably when the pool guy comes, just have them drain out.
Okay.
A little bit at a time, but it needs to be lower 3 inches. The water line is 6 inches. The water line tile is 6 inches. And the water level is supposed to be at 3 inches of those 6 inches, so half of that tile.
Okay. And that can totally be controlled by this refilling thing if it's adjusted correctly.
Yeah, this is just an older one, and it gets stuck. Okay. That's all it is. Replace it. It's not an expensive thing. It's upkeep. You know, it's not broken. It's just kind of not doing so well.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then the other issue is you might be able to kind of pop the camera over here to see this.
I'll come around the other side because I'll be his shadow. Well, and I'll also just be creating a shadow.
So if you look right
All right, let's try that again. Where's this crack? Go ahead.
right below in this coping piece right here, right below the stone, you can see a crack going through.
Yep.
And a little bit on this side as well. So they're a little bit loose, not very much to where they're gonna fall off, but basically this whole area should be grouted.
Okay, so that would.
And it's maintenance. It's not you know, it's not a defect. It's just maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be done every couple of years anyways.
So it sounds like anything, there's maintenance on this pool.
I do inspections all day long. I mean, this is not a bad pool.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not a bad pool. And nothing's done other than the small issues that aren't very expensive. It could be just like this for a long time before anything has to be done. Besides the drains, you know, that's something to kind of allocate in the future.
Okay.
But yeah.
Anything else you can think of?
Yeah, over here, I mean, again, it's an easy thing to fix. But this pull light right there is not securely attached.
The far pool light?
Yeah, it's kind of away from the wall. It just needs to be reseated.
Okay, and that's something a pool person would do?
Yeah, that's not really a big deal.
Oh, I see. It's coming out on the left-hand side.
And you don't want
it's not flush.
Yeah, you want to make it as flush as possible because people try to use it as a step to get out, you know, and you don't want that.
Right.
And then that's it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll get all this emailed out as well.
Okay.
Yeah.